by the end of this video, you're going to understand consistency on a deeper level, and you're going to understand why it's so important. But most importantly, you're going to understand how to do it. How do you become consistent? Why is there somebody that's been in the gym for years? And why is there somebody that goes into the gym for a month and leaves? The difference is not anything other than one knows how to be consistent and the other does not know how to do it. It's not a matter of working harder. It's not a matter of train harder, bro. It's a matter of know-how and consistency. So, couple things. First of all, unsustainable effort leads to laziness. And this is the problem with intensity, right? Unsustainable effort. Intensity means unsustainable effort. It's intense, which means it's on the upper end of the graph. If you have a graph, it's on the highest level, which means it is not sustainable. At some point, it's going to come back to, or if you was going to do like a pendulum like this, right? And intensity is all the way on this side. At some point, it's going to come back to the middle. Unsustainable effort leads to laziness. So if you cannot keep this up, which you're unable to keep this up, ultimately you're going to not come here, but you're going to end up back here and you're not going to be able to keep it up. Now, what happens when we connect our body and our mind? We equal repetition. I'm going to show you how repetition builds consistency. And I'm also going to show you the cost of intensity, because intensity comes at a cost and it can only be spent, and it has to be spent sparingly. It cannot be spent all of the time because it costs a lot on the body and on the mind. But look, let me show you this picture. So what you have here is, it says inconsistent. I was trying to find one that said intense. But what you have here is a ladder. And I want you to picture that you're climbing a ladder, right? Now, if you're going to climb a ladder with intensity, you're going to have loads of gaps in between it and big jumps, big steps in order to climb that ladder, right? Now, how long do you think you're going to keep that up? How sustainable do you think it is, basically? And do you think it's going to be more likely that you fall off that ladder? Pretty likely, right? Whereas if we look at the other ladder on the right, there's loads of small little gaps in between it. Now, granted, that person is taking less steps. Sorry, more steps. However, that person can be a lot more consistent. That person is going to be able to go up that ladder for a lot longer period of time, which means it's more sustainable, which means they can be more consistent, which means that person gets far, far better results. Right now, look, let me show you. Before we waffle any further, where do I put myself? I'll put myself up here, right? I'm going to show you the psychology. Yeah, so this is the psychology of consistency. How to become consistent. Or what happens when we become consistent, right? Now, consistency is something that we've all struggled with. I've certainly struggled with before. However, it's something that we have to understand on a deeper level in order to tap into. When we understand what's taking place in our psychology, when we understand what's taking place in our physiology, which means our body and our mind, when we understand that the process of what's taking place, we can enter into it a lot more easier. All right. So consistency. Simply, what does it do? It creates a new identity through neuroplasticity. Now stay with me. I'm getting a bit sciencey. I don't want to get too sciencey. You know what I'm like. I don't want to get too sciencey. However, in our mind, the best way I can break this down is in our mind, our brain has like neural pathways, right? Now, neuroplasticity is the ability for these neural pathways to rewire and find new routes and do new things. Now, that is what creates your new identity. Now, when you have a new identity, you become a lot more consistent. Reason being is because it is your identity, it's just how you behave. Now, consistency is how we tap into this, not intensity. Intensity can have the opposite effect, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But basically, done a little AI overview. Consistency builds neurological pathways through neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and rewire itself, basically, what I just said. So what happens is, the more we repeat a task, so if, for example, brushing your teeth, great example. Why are you so consistent with brushing your teeth? Because you was told to do it over and over and over again as a child. You've done it over and over and over and over and over again. And now as an adult, or whatever age you are, I don't know how old you are, but now as an adult, you just wake up and brush your teeth. You go to bed. Before you go to bed and you brush your teeth, I hope. I know some of you got some dirty mouths, bruv. I've done it a couple nights. I put my hands up. A couple nights I've gone to bed without brushing my teeth. It happens. But rarely. And why? The reason why it happens rarely is because of consistency. Neural pathways have been built. Brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. And that is how we tap into consistency. Now, as mentioned, the opposite of this is intensity. Now, when we speak about intensity, it sounds great. Yeah, train really hard, work really hard, bro. Yeah, do all of this, bro. It's nonsense. For the most part, now there's a time when we need to be intense. We need to really push it. We need to, you know what I mean, go for it. There is a time for that. However, there's a time for it. Much like there's a time for Christmas. It's once a year. Much like there's a time for Sunday. It's once a week. Does that make sense? It's not every day. Intensity creates a dopamine crash. Stay with me. I promise this is the last bit of science, and then we're gonna go into some fun stuff, right? Now, intensity creates a dopamine crash. Dopamine is your happy signaling. You know what I mean? When you get a text from the missus, I ain't got missus, but when you get a text from the missus, goes off. That's dopamine. It's flying around in your brain, right? Now, intensity creates a high level of dopamine, of course, when you're doing it, but it creates a crash. And with the crash, it makes it more difficult to do that more often, physiologically and psychologically. So, for example, if you was going to do a 10 round boxing fight, really intense, yeah, you can't do that 3 to 4 times a week. You will burn out in every metric you can measure, which will lead you to being inconsistent. This is what happens when we're too intense with our training and we don't slowly work into it. So that's enough science. We're gonna get it out of the way. Enough science, promise. Now look, why am I telling you all this? If we go all the way over here to the left, this little geezer over here, this is me when I was 18. This is actually no, not 18. Wow, way older than that. I was like 21 here. So I think this is my 21st birthday. Yeah. And I want to take you to my arms. Not the biggest things you've ever seen, are they? Yeah, but they're here. I had arms. Arms was something that I've trained. I train often, but not crazy often. Maybe once a week, honestly. But because I built it up week after week after week after week, I'll just do a bit of arms, do a bit more arms, do a bit more arms, then do a bit more intensity here and there. Yeah, really push it. And then I'll go back to just doing a little bit, doing a little bit. What happened is over the years, you'll see the development of my arms. And this is an area where I can talk about consistency has been super beneficial for me. Being consistent, you'll see that this was when I was about 22, I think. Yeah, right that. And then it's about just as I turned about 23, and this is me late 23, about to turn 24. So you'll see that the development of my arm has taken years, right? And this is exactly this is exactly how it manifests in everything, in every metric we can measure, whether it's building a new skill, building our body, building a whatever. It takes consistency. And how we tap into consistency is just by doing a bit here and there, a bit, and then that bit turns into more and more and more. So now, for example, when I train my arms, I'm lifting double the weights, but it's because the adaptation, because my body, your arms will adapt basically to this new stress that you're putting on it every week. You can lift more weights and you can lift them more often. So that more weights that you're lifting and the fact that you're lifting it more often is not any more intense than it used to be, basically, because your body has adapted. I hope this makes sense. And this is how we build consistency over a long time frame. There's this great quote: we underestimate what we can do in a long period of time, but we far overestimate what we can do in a short period of time. Now, building a body is like building anything else, building a habit, building all of these things. It takes time. Give it time. Stretch your goals over a longer period of time and do small bits of that goal every single day or every other day. And that is how we build consistency. Now, look, talking about that, what builds consistency? How do we actually build consistency practically? How do we walk away from here today and become a little bit more consistent? And I wrote these 3 things down. And the reason why I wrote these 3 things down is because I think I need to hear them again. But also it's because these are 3 of the things that have really, really worked for me. Especially in those times when I don't have any motivation, I don't want to do it. But I still manage to keep the rhythm and not break the cycles that I've worked hard to break. Sorry, not break the cycles I've worked hard to build. You don't want to break and ruin the progress that you've worked hard to build, right? I see this over and over again. You probably know somebody that whether they're close to you or you know somebody from afar, whatever it is, that somebody that maybe they've been going to the gym often and they spend periods of time throughout the year in relatively good shape, and then throughout the rest of the year they drop off, and then next summer, yep, they're back on it, and then it's because they're going through this cycle of intensity, burning out, and then falling off. And you'd rather stay here. You'd rather stay here for a long period of time than start here but then end here. This is consistency, right? Anyways, shut up. This is how I build it, right? So start with what you can do on a bad day. This is a great piece of framing to use. So when it comes to your day, what it looks like, think about the worst possible day. You've had 3 hours of sleep. You're tired. You're thrown off. A really bad day. What could you get done on that day? What could you do on that day? Really think about what you could do on that day. That's what you need to start with. That is the level of intensity, that you need to start with. Low level of intensity. You need to start with that. And if you can start with that on a bad day, because if you can do that on a bad day, then on your good days, you'll be able to do it with ease. And if you can do it with ease for a long enough period of time, then you'll be able to up the ante, basically increase whatever it is you're doing later down the line. Now, this whole thing about training, right? Training, as I said, people say train harder, bro. No, there's a time for it. Don't get me wrong. There is a time for it where you've really got an absolutely brute force your way through a workout. However, that is not every day. All right. Most of your days, how I sort of like to split it is once a week, I like to absolutely abuse myself. Now, that's not good choice of language. Once a week, I like to really train hard. That's better language. Okay. But throughout the rest of it, I still train hard, but I'm not burning myself to pieces. Which means practically leaving like 1 to 3 reps in the tank if you're doing your chest press or your bicep curls or whatever. Like, yeah, you're going, flip it off. Oh, this is difficult. And then you get to the last 3, or you could have done 1 more, but you're like, you done that last one. Right here, you could squeeze out another 3 and absolutely go for it. However, this is where you put the weight down. All right, cool. That's where you put the weight down. And now once a week, you can absolutely go for it. However, most of the time, you're going to leave 1 to 3 reps in the tank to build consistency so that you show up the next day, because that is more important than destroying your body on the first day. Is showing up on the second day. And the last thing, follow the 10% rule. Well, let's go training specific, gym specific, right? The reason why this video is quite generic is because it goes across the board. You can do this with everything. Reading books. I've got like 100 books back there. I've read loads of books. I don't like reading all this stuff. And the only way I got into the habit of reading is through this. So follow the 10% rule. 10% of what would make you happy. So for example, you think that you need to do, I don't know, 10K, for example. If you think you need to do 10K, yeah, go run 1. Sounds silly. It sounds so silly, but you'll finish that 1K and you'll be like, oh, yeah, I feel good. I think I can do more. Great. Bottle that feeling, wake up with it the next day. Then maybe do 2. You see where this is going? The 10% rule. Whenever you're about to start a new habit, this is more for when you're starting a new habit, right? When you're going to start a new habit, follow the 10% rule. 10% of whatever you think would be great, do that instead. And then the next day, you'll wake up with a hunger. Oh my days, I can do more. Then run 1.3K, then run 1.5, then run 2K, then in a couple of weeks, you're running 10K like it's, you know what I mean? You're just out there running. And that's how we do it, right? But, ladies and gents, it's just a short one today. Nothing mad, nothing special, you know what I mean? I ain't getting up and doing a backflip. It's just how to build consistency. If consistency is something that you've struggled with and you're looking to build it, this is how you do it. Don't listen to anyone tell you, work harder, bro. Chill out, man. That's not how you build consistency. This is how you build consistency. But yeah, love for the love. See you in a bit.